Well, hello everybody. I'm on looking at chapter 15 a little bit, and just so everybody knows where we are, we're going to be doing chapter 15, working capital and current asset management here. And there's a couple of things we have to know right off the bat. The term working capital is also known as short-term financial management, and that manages current assets and the current liabilities. And they tell you what is defined by current assets. And if you look at a balance sheet, you'll see all these items in a balance sheet, right? You've seen this a little bit already. Inventory, accounts receivable, marketable securities, cash. Cash is always on top, right? And here's the current liabilities. So, take a sip of my coffee. So, companies are able to reduce financing costs or increase the funds available by minimizing the amounts of funds tied up in working capital, right? If funds are tied up in working capital, they can't use it for other things, right? So basically, accounts receivable, they're waiting for the money to come in, and you don't want money just tied up pure cash because you could invest that, right? All right. So working capital refers to current assets, which represent the portion of investment that circulates from one form to another. And net working capital, as we probably have defined already, is the current assets minus current liabilities. It's simply the difference. And this could be positive or negative. Remember we talked about changing net working capital when we were doing the initial investment, and I sent a video about that, this in particular. All right, so profitability, right? That's another important term. It's the relationship between revenues and costs generated by using the firm's assets. Both all types of assets. So how does a company increase its profits? And that should be obvious, right? Number one, you could just sell more stuff, increase the revenues, or you decrease costs, right? So in a way, you can look at this from a personal finance standpoint. How do you increase the money you can use to invest? And you could either increase your pay, get a larger paycheck, or you could decrease costs. All right, so risk is the probability, right, that a firm will be unable to pay its bills. So risk is any type of, probability that you can't meet what you got coming, and you may go insolvent. From a personal standpoint, also. All right, so here's a nice little slide that basically shows the effect of changing ratios on profits and risk. So you'll notice here basically ratio current assets over total assets, and if that increases, it decreases your profit, and the effect on risk is going to decrease your risk, right? And if this decreases, it'll increase your profit, right? If we decrease the change in this ratio, it'll increase your, but it also is going to increase your risk because you're basically running low on assets, right? And the same thing holds for liabilities. So go over this slide. If you have any questions, just email me. You'll find it interesting. And here's a slide that just shows a history from 70 on out of current assets to total assets and different ratios. All right. All right, so the cash conversion cycle, this is extremely important for this chapter. It's imperative you know this, is the length of time required for a company to convert cash invested in its operations to a paycheck received as a result of its operations. So, I mean, this is similar to like if you ran a company, right, and you started pumping money into the company. You want to know how long it takes from the moment you pump money in to start receiving the cash. And we're not at the equation yet for the cash conversion cycle, but we're up to this thing called operating cycle. An operating cycle is it's the sum of the average age of inventory, see this right here, and the average collection period. This is called the operating cycle. And that's the time from the beginning of the production process to the collection of cash from the sale of the finished product, right? So as soon as you start producing it, and then you start collecting cash from the sale. So let's say you sell stuff on the side of the road, little birdhouses. It may take you a week to build one, and then you go out another week and you sell it. So you have a 2-week operating cycle, right? All right. So now the cash conversion cycle equation, which is the most important one right here. So you really should know this, right? So this is equal to the operating cycle minus the average payment period where you got to pay your bills, right? So the average payment period is the time it takes to pay the accounts payable, right? Or your bills. So once again, we take this, we can take operating cycle and write it out as an equation, and you get this right here, right? What we did was write out operating cycle as an equation. So you have these 3 components here. All right, and here they are shown graphically, and here you can see, here's the cash conversion cycle after all is said and done, right? It's 9 days. All right, so it starts here, and it goes here, and basically, right? So your basically your operating cycle is 98 days, and over here they break it down to 40 days and 58 days, so, right? So you get 98 days, and when you subtract off your average payment period of 89 days, 98 minus 89, right, comes out to 9 days, right? So you see that here. So this is just a graphical representation of the equation I just showed you. All right, so here's an example from Whirlpool Corporation, and they're showing the cash conversion cycle with their money. Right, this is how much they've got committed to working capital. Right, here's and you can see that here. All right, so there's a bunch of terms here about seasonal funding, short-term funding, and long-term funding. And the most important thing to understand here is that cash conversion cycle. So here's a whole layout of a cash conversion cycle. And again, I suggest you go through this little by little and look at the different terms here. And if you have any questions about any of this math that's going on, let me know, okay? Or just email me. And here's the cost of the short-term financing. Here's the cost of the long-term financing. And here's the earnings on surplus balances, which in this case are none. So here is your total cost of an aggressive. This is an example of an aggressive strategy, right? So you'll notice here total cost of aggressive strategy. And they do the same thing. Here's the total cost of a conservative strategy. So they do 2 different formats, 2 strategies, basically, for a cash conversion cycle, aggressive versus conservative, as you can see here. All right. So your main goal, and this is the important statement right here, and let me underline this for you, all right? Put my coffee down for a second because it's early in the morning here. The goal is to minimize the length of the cash conversion cycle, which minimizes negotiated liabilities. All right? So this is what you want to do. And they tell you the steps on how to do that. Right? So you go through these 4 steps. In other words, you can be late paying your bills, right? Pay accounts payable as slowly as possible, if you're allowed to, of course. You don't want to get in trouble by not paying your bills, right? So we know that. We don't want to do that. Nobody wants to do that. All right, so here's now we move on to inventory management, and there's different methods of looking at inventory, right? So this is another important equation that you really have to know, and I emphasize the economic order quantity, and it's an inventory management system for determining the optimal order size, right? There's 2 things you want to optimize, right? You don't want to have too much stuff sitting on the shelf, right? Because then you can't sell it and you wasted your money. Or you don't want to not order enough and then not and have a stock out and then you can't sell anymore, right? Both of those are detrimental to your business. So you don't want to do that. All right? So you know, that's important. And another sip of coffee. So there's two terms here, order costs and carrying costs. All right, so let me get the, I want to jump to the official equation you have to know. And here it is in blue. This is an important equation. And this is the equation that you really should know. And I'll make a box here, right? So you emphasize this equation. So this is the economic order quantity. And you just plug in a couple terms here for S, O, and C. And just so everyone's clear, C is the carrying cost, right? And here they are defined. S is C is your carrying cost. S is the usage in units. O is your order cost per order, and order quantity in units. So you take those items and plug them into here, and you'll get the optimum inventory to carry. And here's a personal finance example of that here, I guess for a hybrid car. All right, so another term is the reorder point in days, and that's the days of lead time times the daily usage, right? So it just tells you when should I order more. The point at which to reorder inventory expressed as days of lead time. So, you know, you look at that. All right, so here's the good example of economic order quantity, and I suggest you, strongly suggest actually, that you go over this example. And I'll make another box because this is important. My lines aren't too straight. It's early in the morning still, right? It's just, I started around 5:30. All right. So this is important, and you could use these numbers and see how they do this here. All right, so now they just go over some inventory systems here, and this is just some boilerplate stuff. This isn't really that important here, right? All right, so what I'll do is I guess I'm on slide about 42. I'll stop here, and it's getting a little larger. We're 13 minutes into this, and the video, it gets very huge. And then we'll pick up from here. All right. So I'll talk to you later. Have a good day.